Hello, everyone. My name is Camia Brown. I am the principal and founder of Camia Brown Interiors. We are a Brooklyn-based interior design firm. We specialize in residential and commercial design, and we service clients all around the world. I'm originally from Georgia, and I was initially going to school for broadcast journalism. And then I changed my major my junior year to interior design. I was taking a law and ethics class. It was probably, I think it was like day 4, right before drop ad. And I was like, you know what, this is just not working for me. And I had this epiphany and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I would love to still do some journalism or some speaking engagements, but I don't need to take this route to get there. And then I went to career services, took an aptitude test, me being very logical. And I said, let's figure out what else we're really good at and where else can we shine. And so to make a very long story less long, that's how I discovered interior design. And then I spoke to someone in the interiors department. And then I sat in on a few classes, called some interior designers, spoke to them about their profession, and then I decided to go for it. When I decided to finally take the leap of faith and say, you know what, we're doing this full time, it was October of 2019. And it was right before the pandemic started, and I signed my first client in that November. And we finished her project, which was a full kitchen renovation and some adjustments and touch-ups to her apartment, literally the weekend before the shutdown. We had final sign-offs literally the weekend before the shutdown. So it's been interesting because yes, I've been in business for, since then, but it feels like this last couple of years, it's been very up and down. So I also experienced a lot last year. My mother passed, my grandmother passed away, and then also my main contractor that I worked with a lot committed suicide. And so, when we don't talk about stress, we don't talk about, how that impacts our business as entrepreneurs. But I will say last year was completely a blur for me. So 2020 was a blur. Last year was a blur. So I feel like I had like 2 really great strong years where I was finally coming into my own and discovering myself as a leader in my own space. And then life happens. And so now 2024, we're welcoming all the greatness and embracing, new networking opportunities and creative ways to gain exposure to, leave our indelible mark on the world of design. Getting your NCIDQ certification is no feat for the faint of heart. It is definitely intense, but I will say it is super rewarding. It is super needed. I do think that, as an advocate for the interior designers calling themselves designers who are licensed and who have formal training, I do think that it is super important to honor that, to respect that, and to, study the craft. It's more than just making spaces pretty. We are very concerned about the health, the welfare of those spaces and those who are going to occupy it. And so I think if there's anyone who is interested in getting their NCIDQ, I highly recommend it, especially if you are working in commercial interior spaces. The beautiful thing that I love about interior design, and again, speaking from my education, is we take studio classes where you learn about each type of design. So there's a component where we're studying hospitality. You may be working on a restaurant, or you get to decide, like, based on your studio course, what type of hospitality project you're going to work on. And then for your residential studio, you're working on a residential project. For your commercial studio, it's a commercial. There's a small commercial space and a large commercial space. So you gain access and exposure, and you're learning about how to design for each of these spaces, how to properly specify materials, how to think about sound, and again, safety, ADA accessibility, all the things. And then it equips you with that idea of like, okay, yeah, I find myself gravitating to commercial, or yes, I definitely subscribe to residential design. Well, for me, I was like, I'm here because I want to do all of it. Like, I like all of it. And so I have really positioned myself to be able to do that. And so I've worked on all types of projects. I've worked on some hotel projects as well as office spaces and a lot of residential as well. So I love to have a dynamic portfolio that's varied in project types because it keeps it fun and no one client is the same, whether it's residential, commercial, or hospitality. And so to be able to mix it up, be able to, think creatively in these different design solutions that are needed because each type has a different audience that they're catering to, it's just so much fun. And I came across this organization, Engineering Ministries International, when I went to a portfolio review in Atlanta. And so I ended up going to Costa Rica. I was there for about 6 months working for this organization, doing drafting and for projects that we were working on in Panama. And then while I was in Costa Rica, Sandy happened in New York. And so during my time there, I said, okay, well, now I'm going to come back to Georgia. Let's figure out what's next. And I started looking at other opportunities because I still was like, you know what, I still have more to give before I start working, because I knew once I started working, like there was no turning back. You can't, like, once you start getting a taste of making your own money, it's hard to say no. So I looked into AmeriCorps because, again, Peace Corps didn't have anything that was design specific. And these other organizations that I looked in were heavily focused on architecture that had a mission in, giving back from a creative perspective. And so I ended up joining the AmeriCorps and I was working for Habitat for Humanity. And it was in New York City, and we were rehabbing and building homes that were impacted by Hurricane Sandy. And so that was my first taste of, do I like New York? Do I want to plant roots here? And how long do I want to stay? Because my commitment was for a year. And so that felt like something I could commit to. And it felt safe enough to be able to transition and live somewhere else if I decided that I wasn't suited for New York. But then I loved it. I've been here now 11 years, and it's been great. I am not a fan of artificial intelligence. I am a fan of 3D renderings. So there's a difference in that approach. As a creative, and that is literally like the soul of what we do is create from within, right? So like whether it's graphic design or photography, it's a visceral experience where you're taking something from deep within yourself and you're sharing it with other people, and you're again leaving your thumbprint in these various spaces, and then also impacting people's homes and their lifestyle, their way of life, how they're functioning. So I don't believe in removing that human piece from your designs. I believe that it's something that when you partner with your client and you get very clear about what their goals are, what their needs are, how they experience space and what their desires are. Because the reality is currently the way that it's set up, it's not creating from nothing. It's just images from online and doing a hodgepodge design of like taking other people's intellectual property. And so that's my big concern with AI. And I feel like it just kind of like waters down what it is we do, like as licensed trained interior designers now. So I'm not a fan of that. However, I do use 3D renderings in my projects with my clients all the time. So once we think of some ideas, we have concepts, and let's say they're not visual, we always offer and provide 3D renderings for the spaces that we're working on. So bathrooms, kitchens, living rooms, hotels, restaurants, whatever that space is. Folks don't know that I do speak Spanish. I've traveled to a lot of different countries. I am older than I look, so I am not a 20-something. I do have a lot of experience. I do think that people are surprised when they find out just how technical I am as a designer and the experience and exposure to projects that I have worked on. I think those are also like things that folks are shocked to understand, especially when I start describing, our approach to design and how we experience space, when they realize, oh, she's not a decorator.